So we thought we'd do the Zoom meeting just to give an update on what we've experienced today. It's been, again, going from yesterday to today. It's been a peaceful demonstration. People expressing their opinion, especially with regards to Black Lives Matter. It stems from the George Floyd horrific death, which is irreversible. And really what it really comes down to is after today, where do we move to go forward to improve as a country, as states, as cities, and build on each other out of respect and a true understanding of what we need to do to become stronger people together. So Chief Winslow will give an update with regards to the police and what they've done to engage everybody as far as keeping the community safe, because as you know, it's not necessarily with the marchers, but there's been rumors that have been run rampant with potential outsiders coming into our community. And a lot of the peaceful demonstration happening is due to the individuals we have in our community. That's our greatest asset, are the people we have here, and how they do express their frustrations, their dissatisfactions, their ambitions, and how do we, all realize the importance of respect and understanding one another. And so that's what we're going through this difficult challenge, especially with the pandemic, all this combined together. And, through this will make us stronger as we move forward. So Chief Winslow, if you give us an update on, from your perspective, how things are going and anything else you'd like to share, and then we'll just open up for questions.
Yes, sir. Can everybody hear me all right? I hope so. If you can't, somebody pipe up, please. Give it a second. Okay. Today's been a long day. Officer's been monitoring the situation even since last night when the protest broke up in the early morning hours. It was a pretty calm night. We did have some vandalism throughout town and some criminal damage to vehicles with some windows broken out, as well as some businesses that had some windows broken out throughout the evening, including a burglary of one cell phone shop, Drop Mobile up on West Jefferson there in the 1800 block. Additionally, we had a fire over Max Lounge that the Springfield Fire Department is looking into. Unknown if it's related to anything that we've had going on. Obviously, we know that the protest didn't go over there, but it could be somebody out there just doing their own thing later on at late at night hours. Same thing with the criminal damage to vehicles. We had about 5 of those in the overnight hours, 4 or 5 of those in the overnight hours where people broke out windows, but it was not in the area where the protesters had been. It was further to the south of town. With that said, today has been an event. The protest kicked off around 3 o'clock. They're still going now. There's still probably a few hundred people down there. I would say probably 300 or so by a guesstimation. Still down there now. For the most part, it's been peaceful or calm. Obviously, they're doing their chants and doing their walking. Typically, it's been restricted here just to the downtown business district. Seems like about every hour or so, they decide to go on a little roaming walk through the central business district. We've had no issues of any criminal damage, any incidents of vandalism or anything at this time. Right now, it's been calm and the way we would like it to remain through the rest of the evening. With that said, we've talked to some of the organizers. We've got a decent working relationship with them right now.
Did the chief cut out?
Yeah. Let me check just a second.
We're checking on that right now, Mayor.
Okay.
He was just getting to the good part too.
Right. I don't know if there's any questions that I can answer in the meantime, or we'll just wait for the chief. It should just be a few minutes.
I've got one, if possible, Bruce Rushton. Can you hear
Hi,
me?
Bruce. Yes.
Um, I gotta say, I was tremendously impressed by Sunday's Black Lives Matter processional. I think I saw you there, Mayor. They had a lot more cars show up than they expected. Um, there were obviously no trouble. How do you take what lessons? What was your takeaway from that, if any? What did that sort of a turnout tell you about our city, and what might it say about our future?
Well, I think it was two things. One, with regards to the organizers, Sunshine Clemens, I think that shows, the great skills to organize and let your message be heard. I think there's strong support. I think there's a lot of concern, just not in Springfield, but throughout the country. But to do it in a peaceful, respectful manner, that speaks volumes to Springfield and the residents. There's a lot of times that we have tough challenges and, a lot of friction and discussion. But it's important that we voice our concerns and do so we can be constructive. And that's really showed to me the strength of our community, but as importantly, the strength going forward. But as we all know, it's good. This needs to happen each and every day. These are demonstrations that happen, but what we need to make sure of that it does not fall on deaf ears. How do we go forward from here? And that's what we intend to continue to do. Just like individuals rallied for the coronavirus. I mean, dealing with racism is century-old issue, and quite frankly, everybody is exhausted. I think there's a lot of stress in the community with regards to the pandemic, but as importantly, or more importantly, is the exhaustion through racism through time. And I think, unfortunately, the flashpoint raised the level with the death of George Floyd. And I think with Springfield's community coming out in strong support of the Black Lives Matter movement, it showed the importance of it, and it shows the anguish built through time, and most importantly, that we need to really mobilize to take positive, active steps, actionable steps to improve the lives of others.
If I could follow
Chief
up.
wants to, I don't know if the chief wants to add to
Chief, go ahead, yeah.
Chief, do you want to add anything?
I didn't hear the question, sir, because I got disconnected. If they could repeat the question.
Sorry. It's about Sunday's gathering. The numbers is, I think, is over 1,000 individuals. And what do you feel that says about Springfield and moving in the future as far as the procession for the Black Lives Matter on Sunday?
Yeah, kind of echo what the mayor said. It was I couldn't ask for a procession to go off better than what it did. With the social distancing aspect and the safety aspects they put into it, there was obviously a lot of pre-planning, and the organizers worked with us to make sure that it went off without any issues. It was a great turnout. Largest turnout I've probably seen for anything like this. Obviously, I think that just shows how the death of Mr. Floyd has struck a nerve across our country. And as I said last night, anytime that you have these in custody deaths, they're always challenging. But there's some of those and there's a few here and there where they're just blatantly clear what happened and blatantly wrong. And I think everybody saw this, and it's touched a nerve. But I admire what the Minneapolis officials have done as far as moving very quickly to fire 4 officers in 48 hours and to arrest one within 72 hours. That's remarkable speed for the government and for an investigation. And I think that's because it was so clear that how wrong this incident was. Most of the times they're not this clear cut, and there's a lot more to it. With that said, I'm sure that the other people that were involved that the Minneapolis officials are looking at that, and I'm sure that everybody will be held accountable when it's all said and done. But as far as for Springfield, I think we're just a microcosm of the entire country. And when we see what's going on around here, everybody knows that there's been tension with law enforcement in the African American community for several years. We've worked extremely hard on that since I've been chief over the last 7 years, through community policing, through outreach, through all the stuff that we try to do that we can't really do right now because of COVID-19. But it shows that everybody cares. I haven't talked to one officer that doesn't think what happened in Minneapolis was wrong. It's an unfortunate tragedy, shouldn't have happened. And I think people are gonna be held accountable for it. And it makes us all look bad as law enforcement when you see something like that happens. It doesn't matter if it happens in Minneapolis or if it happens in St. Louis or if it happens in Springfield or wherever. Those kind of actions reflect poorly on our profession as a whole. And we got to do better. That's the bottom line. We simply have to do better. That's not how the Springfield Police Department trains its folks. And in Illinois, actually, you can't even, cut the air to somebody's airway off unless it's a deadly force encounter. It's actually against the law. It's against policy. And I don't know what the policy was in Minneapolis, but obviously that wasn't needed. And unfortunately, it's Mr. Floyd lost his life, and there's no bringing back.
Chief, it's Mike with WICS. I'd like to ask you, how much, I know you don't want to talk about your strategy, but how much different is tonight with the people on the street than last night? Are we talking about the same level of caution, or is there a difference?
No, our manpower and resources out there are about the same as what we had last night. There's a couple things we did learn from last night that we tweaked as far as our partnerships with our law enforcement partners. I think there's a few extras from them tonight. So been able to beef up certain areas of the city. We're not just downtown, we're all over the city. And we have response teams that can respond to anything that may flare up. So we're confident with what we have right now that tonight will go off peacefully. I also have the confidence in the Springfield community that this will remain calm and that we can get through tonight with letting people peacefully express their rights. And hopefully there won't be any issues, but I'm confident that we can get through tonight with not anything major, hopefully.
Chief and Mayor, this is the Jim Leach at WMAY. What we've seen the last couple of nights is really no different than what a lot of communities go through every night, and a lot of neighborhoods in Springfield go through every night. Why was the request for people to stay at home necessary? Chief, can you give us any insight as to the type of information you were getting that prompted you to make that call?
Yes, sir. So basically, we were looking at our intelligence that we've been getting over the last 48 hours. The intelligence hasn't changed a whole lot from what we had last night. I had several business owners call me, and obviously we left it up to their discretion. After talking to the mayor, I had several people calling and asking about curfews. We actually even spoke to some other comparable cities throughout central Illinois to see what they were doing. And ultimately, I know that the mayor was heavily considering that. We spoke together as well as with the unified command here at the police department. And it was ultimately decided that with the intelligence that we had, we didn't think a curfew was necessary, but we did want to advise people that, hey, if you go out, if you don't need to go out tonight late at night, then it could be beneficial for you to stay home. It makes our job a little easier with less people, just in case this would take a turn for the wrong.
Hey, Chief, Brendan Moore. As you mentioned, today's protests the past week in the capital city have been quite peaceful. I haven't seen the same types of violence and unrest that have flared up in other places, not just Chicago, but in Champaign and Peoria. What do you attribute that to?
I go back to what I said last night. It goes back to the quality of our community. Our community and citizens are second to none. They want a right to peacefully protest. They want a right to express themselves. But ultimately, I don't think they want to cause damage to our community. They want to make sure that our city remains whole. I think they understand that, and they're responsible about the actions that they're taking. And I know last night that there were some people who wanted to maybe do something a little bit different, and there was actually some people in the protest that were saying, no, we're not like that. We're not going to be part of that. And if you're going to be like that, get out of our group. So they're even doing some self-policing in the protest. So I think it just comes down to the quality of the people in Springfield. We all know that everybody wants to express their feelings right now. It goes back to, like I said earlier, everybody knows what happened is wrong. Nobody supports it. With that said, we're just doing our part, just like we do with every protest, is to maintain the public peace and the public safety.
Chief, it's Greg.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I apologize, Dave. I was just going to ask Chief, it's Greg Hallblade, WFMB. I was going to ask if are they all Springfield people? Are you hearing any reports of anybody from outside of the community that are part of this?
We got intelligence initially that there could be some people from the outside, and I'm sure there may have been some people who came to the protest and maybe who were still down there. But we haven't had to reach out and pull anybody out of the crowd for anything wrong. So to actually identify and say who people are right now, I can't give you that information. There could be a mix of people down there. I'm not sure. But we haven't had any issues, you know, with, say, outsiders coming in right now and causing problems for us at this time.
Chief, there were barricades that went up to stop traffic from going into the Sherwood subdivision last night. Why did those barriers go up? And specifically, there had been at least one media report that left it, I think, a little unclear. Did you folks, in fact, receive any information that was subsequently relayed to folks in Sherwood that there were plans afoot to loot the west side of Springfield?
Don't want to get into all of our intelligence, but there was some intelligence about, you know, our business districts possibly being targeted. We have put a plan together to secure some properties and make sure that we can safeguard those businesses. Our responsibilities here obviously is to safeguard life first, but then property second. And we want to make sure that our businesses aren't damaged, aren't destroyed. I don't think that's going to happen in Springfield, but we have to take those safeguards to make sure that it doesn't.
What about Sherwood, the residential subdivision?
I have to check on that, Bruce. I didn't know if you're saying we shut down the entrance to Sherwood subdivision. I'm not aware of that. I'll have to check on that.
Okay.
I know our law.
It was the subdivision and not the plaza?
I believe it was a subdivision. I can double check that.
Yeah, I know we did. I know we had stuff over at Sherwood Plaza. I'm not familiar with anything with the subdivision, so
Okay.
I could check on that too as well.
Okay.
The governor,
Hey, Dom.
No,
Go ahead,
forget it all.
Yeah, go ahead, Dave, and then we'll do Brenda Moore and then Jim Leach. So Dave, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Dave. Go ahead, Brendan.
All right. Chief, could you discuss your strategy with regards to some of the retail centers? I know last night there was a pretty heavy police presence out by White Oaks and around some of the other retail centers. Will that continue tonight in the coming days? And you can kind of discuss your strategy there.
Yes, we are going to have a heavy presence in all of our business districts. That's part of what we brought in some additional reinforcements from our fellow law enforcement partners to help us cover all those business areas. Unlike some communities, we're kind of spread out with those shopping districts, and we just want to make sure again that there are no issues. You know, from time to time, you'll have a commercial burglary. We've had a few of those over the, you know, even this year so far. We just want to give somebody an opportunity to try to take this time, this challenging time, just to complete a criminal act and have it blamed on, you know, what else is going on around here right now. So again, you know, last night we actually had one, like I said before, and obviously we had some windows knocked out of business, et cetera. I can't tie it to the protesters because we monitored it the whole time until it was dispersed. But that doesn't mean that some of them may not have went out on their own and done something, or there could have been some independent groups just trying to take advantage of the situation. But that's what we want to avoid. We want to make sure that our business districts are as secure as we possibly can.
Dave, you ready? Dave Dahl? Jim Leach, you ready?
Hello? Oh,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
Okay, well, Mayor and Chief, the governor mobilized the National Guard, called up additional Illinois State Police troopers for use in downstate communities. Was there any discussion about trying to get some of that assistance, either additional state police or National Guard, to help with patrolling here locally?
We have been since day one working with the state police. They've given us some dedicated resources, and I have to thank them. And they've been with us. We have not asked for any additional. We did ask for a couple of additional tools and resources they have that we don't have for tonight. But they've been with us since day one, even back to the planning. Oftentimes when we have these protests, it's usually the Capitol Police, Springfield Police Department, and the state police. And due to the nature and the uncertainty about what's going on in our country right now, we obviously reached out to our other local law enforcement with the county, Jerome, Leland Grove, Southern View, Grandview, Chatham PD, and they've been extremely helpful with us. Even Loami PD helped us out last night. So we're thankful and grateful. And as I said last night, you know, the good thing about law enforcement, Sangamon County, we're here for each other. There's a great working relationship. And you don't have that in every county. And we're very, very fortunate that we do. And we're very fortunate to have the resources that we have out there. So again, we have not requested any additional as far as the National Guard. No, we have not requested any assistance from the National Guard either.
Chief, you folks have had a number of issues in the last weeks. You've had you've had the protests prior to Black Lives Matter and the unfortunate situation in Minneapolis. You've had pop-up parties. Now you've got this. How are you doing, in terms of just staying awake and making sure the job gets done in terms of all the challenges you face? And B, do you have any sense at this point in time as to how much longer you can continue this, and frankly, at what cost? I mean, there must be a heck of a lot of overtime involved here.
Yeah, Bruce, there is a large amount of overtime that we're doing right now. We do have a plan that's in place. Like I said, we work on 24-hour operation cycles. We're prepared to go as long as we need to go. Again, there is some cost there with the overtime, with the holdover for the officers, or to call them in early, depending on what we have going. It is expensive, no doubt about that. We will base our response on intelligence and base our response on what we believe may happen. And at the appropriate time, we will start to, maybe scale that back. Right now, that's always things that we are constantly monitoring as we go forward. As far as the men and women of the Springfield Police Department and our law enforcement partners, they're very dedicated. These are challenging times for us too, and they're doing a great job for us, to be frank. They're doing a great job. Many of them are working very long hours, 12, 14-hour days, some of them 18-hour days. So it's one of those things right now. We try to keep people as refreshed as we can. We try to keep a rotation to include my staff. We didn't get out here till 3 o'clock last night, and some of them were back at 6:30 this morning, so, and they're still here. So it's been a long couple days. We want to get through this. We want our whole country to get through this, and let's all take a step forward and try to bring back some normalcy, learn from it, and let's sit down and figure out how we can work together to do better.
As a follow-up, if I could, we have had a number of very large pop-up parties with some shootings that have occurred in the last couple of weeks. If you could compare and contrast, which is the biggest concern at this point in time, or are they apples and oranges?
Obviously, anytime we have a pop-up party, there's the potential at late at night when people have potentially been drinking or partying for something to go sideways. And I say that based on our history and our experience in law enforcement. We know that sometimes they go out, there's no issues. Sometimes there's no issues with it. We can disperse it. But then other times, unfortunately, we've had 2 shootings in 2 nights in very close vicinity. And we have 3 people shot in those 2 shootings. And hopefully we don't have anybody, hopefully none of them are fatal. Hopefully everybody pulls through. That's the dangers that we have in the middle of the night when things you don't know what's going to happen. It's so uncertain. The protests, on the other hand, for the last month, they're taxing on our manpower, and you got a little bit of an unknown situation there as well. But so far, they've been relatively calm. Again, we've had some issues last night. Can't tie them all to the protest, but we haven't had anybody get hurt, and that's an important thing there. So anytime we have a shooting in our community, it's a tragic situation that somebody feels like they have to take, for whatever reason, pull out a weapon and shoot somebody. And that's the highest concern there. Obviously, like I said earlier, is personal safety, whether it's in a pop-up party or whether it's in a protest. A shooting can occur anywhere. Our hope is that we don't have any shootings, but we know that, unfortunately, reality is we do.
Can
Chief,
you
this is
talk about the intelligence? You referenced the fact that you get this intelligence. It's what's had you on high alert for the last couple of nights. What's it telling you about tomorrow night or the night after that? Are they anticipating this is going to be a nightly occurrence for a while? Can anybody say?
At this point in time, we do our intelligence as we go on. I don't have any intelligence for tomorrow yet. That's something, obviously, our federal partners are still here at the station with us, as well as our state partners. We're constantly monitoring with their resources. As the night goes on, things could change instantaneously, as well as today or tomorrow. We don't know what's going to happen. But obviously, we have a briefing every morning and every night before we leave to talk about the next operation cycle. So we'll make those decisions as we go forward.
Yeah, Mary Hanson.
Thank you. Chief Winslow, I hear what you and the mayor are saying about community policing and outreach, but the protesters, some of them specifically called out the Springfield police, in particular for unfair treatment or bullying, being pulled over or things like that. If you've been doing this for 7 years and there's still complaints, what more could you be doing, should you be doing? And in response particularly to these calls that are happening now?
Well, I think you always got to look at how you can improve, and with that, in our career, you're never going to make everybody happy. Some people don't understand or don't agree with why maybe they were pulled over. We have an internal affairs process that will investigate any complaint that anybody brings forward. We implement body cameras to be more transparent. Again, they can always call for a supervisor on the scene if they would like. Those are things that we do at the Springfield Police Department and try to make people, try to basically, explain why we do what we do. We hold a citizen police academy to educate people why we do what we do. But again, unfortunately, when you're in law enforcement and in a position of authority, some people just don't like that. And then there are times when we mess up, when we screw up, and then we just have to basically, hold our people accountable, retrain them so we don't make the same mistakes. And that's what we try to do.
Chief, the city has a Citizens Police Review Advisory Board. I may have gotten the commission, I think I may have gotten the nomenclature a bit wrong, but I think we know what we're talking about here. It has not been particularly busy through the years. It hasn't got many cases. It seems to be more a paper tiger, if it's even a tiger. Is there, and I guess this is both for the chief and mayor, should there be a greater role for that advisory commission than there is now?
Well, what I would say there is that I think the process works. Typically when somebody comes in and makes a complaint about our officers, it's either sustained or it's not sustained, and every once in a while they're unfounded. We do have people sometimes who make false complaints that we can prove they're false, and those are rare. A lot of times when it comes to a complaint, it's a perception about how the incident occurred, and the body cameras have been extremely helpful. And with these complaints, a lot of times we'll have people come in, they'll start to make a complaint. The first thing we do is pull the body camera to review it, and we'll review it with them, let them watch it. And there's several times they'll sit down and they'll go, "That's not what I remember, what I thought I did. I didn't know I did that. I apologize. Now I understand why the officer did what he did." We do have a couple that go through there. I would say a couple a year on average go through the Citizen Review Board, and they make their decision, and we take whatever the recommendation is and we move forward with it. But ultimately, there's not a whole lot of gray a lot of times in a complaint. Either the officer messed up or the officer didn't mess up.
Should that review board have subpoena power?
I'm confident in the way the board operates right now, and I'm satisfied with how it works.
Would you be understanding if somebody said, you know what, the process you've described, an internal affairs process, is an internal review? Is there any school of thought that might legitimately say, I feel more comfortable with an outside look at this?
Can you repeat that again, Bruce? I couldn't hear it all.
I'm sorry. An internal affairs investigation often ends up as a he said, she said, and that we can't conclusively prove whether the complaint was true or it was not true. Is there a school of thought that says, you know what, I feel more comfortable if this was handled by somebody outside the police department, which would be the Civilian Review Commission? Is that a legitimate way for folks to think?
I'm not going to say it's not a legitimate way for people to think, but what I would say is I don't think our process is broken. In fact, we're one of the very few departments in the state of Illinois that has a police review commission, and we've had it for several years. I don't think our process is broken. I think it works well. Typically, if you look at our IA files, a lot of them are generated within the department by our supervisors to hold our people accountable. And typically, if there's a complaint generated from an inside source, it's going to be sustained. 9 times out of 10, it's usually sustained because we police our own. So again, I'm not going to get into the specifics of that. Obviously, anything that we would do, that would have to be negotiated with the union, but I don't think the process is broken. I'm satisfied with it.
Do you have a view of qualified immunity? Is that something that needs to be looked at again? Qualified immunity as it comes to police officers who have been accused of wrongdoing?
No, and right now, like I said, I don't think the system, as far as qualified immunity, it's there for a reason. The courts have put it there. Again, sometimes these incidents like you see with what happened in Minneapolis, they're clear cut. Laquan McDonald, it's clear cut. But then you take some of the other incidents and they're not clear cut, and then it comes down to an outside thorough investigation that Illinois has. If you look at law enforcement, Illinois really is the leader in the country when it comes to officer-involved shootings. You're mandated to have an outside review, an outside independent investigation. The state's attorney can ship it out to an outside state's attorney. He can take it to a grand jury. Again, officers have to go through a mandated drug and alcohol draw if they're involved in a officer-involved shooting. So again, these kind of things that the officers and the law enforcement in Illinois, we've been at the forefront in the nation to make sure that our officers do it right. And we're leaders in this. And so what you see around the country when you see these things happen, they're unfortunate. They could happen here in Illinois, but it's one of those things. Again, we're at the forefront, and the rest of the country needs to catch up with us.
So we'll do a couple more questions.
Rachel Otwell here with Illinois Times. In the wake of Mike Brown's death, there were things that were implemented, such as wider use of body cams in certain areas. I'm not sure the timing exactly in Springfield, but I think 2014. I'm just wondering, going forward, if there's, kind of practical advances. I know we've already talked a little bit about what's in mind, but yes?
You broke up there. I got about half the question. Could you repeat?
Right, I'm cutting out. Yeah, just again, in terms of any practicable ideas going forward. I know there's ongoing internal investigations right now about disparaging comments and alleged racism within the force. I'm just wondering if there are any takeaways that you see coming out of a specific moment in time.
Well, obviously, the Springfield Police Department does not tolerate, discriminatory practices, et cetera. As I've always said, our police department is not perfect, but we have a very, very good police department. We hold our people accountable for their actions. Depending on what the situation is, it may end up in a termination, it may end up in a suspension, it may be a retraining, or it could be a combination of any of those. What I would tell the people is that you have to hold your people accountable, and everything's not clear cut. People get a little bit of information, then they want to run with it, and it could be based in fact, but turned into something that is totally not. I'm confident the way my staff has handled any issues that have arisen in the Springfield Police Department, and we learn from them and we move on. And I fired 3 officers in my career, and I'm not proud of that as chief, but we hold our people accountable, and we're not afraid to do that. Sometimes an arbitrator will reinstate those people, and sometimes a judge reinstates those people. Those are things that we just live with, and we have to move on. Again, we try to learn from our mistakes, not to repeat them. But again, we have to learn, we have to move forward, and we have to do better.
And about the body cameras, I think we implemented those probably 2 years ago. And within that first year, I believe one instance where it helped with regards to the officer. And then the other time it helped with regards to what happened within the community. So it worked both ways, but it did give a fuller picture, so to speak, with regards to what happens. But in answer to your question, in addition to that, Rachel, with the Michael Brown case out of Ferguson, I think you will see kind of a reevaluation of what we're doing on a broader scale, from the federal government all the way down to the local government with policing. I think that's natural. I think it's something that should be done on a regular basis, and that's what we do on a regular basis, but on a broader scale of who adopts those, because I don't think there's a lot of police agencies within the state that does body cameras and some other initiatives that the chief alluded to. I think the tragic death of George Floyd will impact change, just as the Ferguson situation had.
I'd like to add to that, the Springfield Police Department started exploring body cameras actually back in 2014, 2015, before the law even allowed us to implement them. Under former Mayor Houston, it was a priority of his, and we lobbied the legislator to get the law changed so we could implement body cameras. We were the first major department in the state of Illinois to go to body cameras. Chicago came on shortly after us, as well as Elgin. But if you look out throughout the state right now, the use of body cameras in our state as well as in our nation is still in the minority. We've been the leader in this. Again, like I said earlier, in Illinois, we are at the forefront of law enforcement, and the rest of the country has to catch up with us. Part of the problem with body cameras is the cost. They come at a great cost, but they're a valuable tool, and they're not a panacea. They never have been, but they are a valuable tool that helps us paint a better picture of what occurs out there. And, with that said, it gives people an idea of kind of the issues that our officers deal with, and it shows the good job they do, but it also shows when they mess up and they do a bad job. And We've seen that in cases in the past, and again, it's just a valuable tool to help paint a better picture.
And the one item, just real quick on that, when we were looking at it to implement, one of the difficulties, and you can appreciate this, is the release of video. It should be, in my opinion, released a lot quicker at times like video dash cams. But the chief can tell you the long, arduous process with regards to releasing video, based on cases. And I believe it should be kind of like a video cam of a police officer's car.
Well, I think what the mayor's getting into there is that the one downfall, and this is probably a lot of reasons why a lot of departments don't go to body cameras, is the additional cost that they cost. It's not just the fact of the cost of the equipment, it's the cost of the storage, but it's more than that, it's the manpower hours on FOIAs. Basically, it takes about a 13-to-1 ratio is what it takes if you get somebody who's good. So for every 1 minute of video, it takes 13 minutes to redact it. So it is very tedious and time consuming. And sometimes you get people who just want to take video for whatever reason. If you look at the law and the way the law is written about the FOIA, they were actually written to be exempt from FOIA, except for under certain situations. But again, that's something that we've had to work through with the legislator. It is what it is. We think it's worth it. That's why we do it. We had to hire additional manpower to just do the redaction, to deal with the FOIAs. And it's just part of what we do out there.
So any other questions?
Yeah, just to follow, I just want to clarify, is it fair to say that the killing of Mike Brown illuminated or affected that decision at all in 2014?
Yeah, that was definitely part of it, but I got to go back to, Mayor Houston. He was for it beforehand. We had been looking at in-car cameras, and in-car cameras around about $5,000 a piece. They're extremely expensive, and we were looking for a cheaper option. And at that time, there were some departments around the country that were piloting body cameras or starting to use body cameras. Mayor Houston was in favor of them. The law did not allow for us to use it. It allowed for in-car cameras at the time. And basically, he tasked us with trying to get that legislation changed where we could do it. And we worked on it. And eventually, I think the Michael Brown case definitely opened the door to get the legislation through. We were one of, like I said, we were the first larger major department to go to. And since that time, we've helped numerous other agencies throughout the state adopt a program and work through it. But again, this is just extra work that the Springfield Police Department takes on to basically be transparent and show and hold our people accountable and to learn from our mistakes.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Well, we appreciate your time.
Mayor, your hair looks much better.
Thank you very much. My wife she just cut it too. She continued, but I'll probably go back to my barber eventually.
Okay, well, I couldn't let that pass.
Thank you. Yeah, Chief, he's ready to get his haircut today, but he couldn't. Right, Chief?
Hopefully tomorrow, sir, the next day, get a haircut. The girl can't get me into Saturday. I got to find a new barber to help me out. I'm in dire need.
Well, we hope you all have a good evening. Thanks for joining us.